Welcome all in. For those of you in YouTube land, it usually takes a few minutes for people to get on stream. But yes, welcome to the Average Albertan podcast, the playoff edition, and we are headed towards round 3. Yes, if you're a Canadian hockey fan, I apologize. You're going to hear some things in this episode that may bring back those bad memories of round 2 or even round 1 if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan. Yes, no success for the Canadian hockey teams past round 2, so we will get into that. We will talk about our predictions for round 3. We'll look at the draft lottery once again, and we will look at the awards. Now that all the finalists for all the awards, we'll look at kind of the big awards and give you our picks on who you think should win those awards. So we will get started in 30 seconds. We will be right back for the show, and I'll bring in the panel. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching the Average Albertan podcast. Well, here we are. We are back for another fantastic episode on this May. It is currently May the 16th. Most of us from Alberta, Canada. We do have an Easterner as part of the panel. Frank is here. Eric is here. Ryan is here to give you our thoughts about round 2 of the playoffs and look ahead a little bit to round 3. So welcome all in. Feel free to leave comments, ask questions in the chat. Again, this is the Average Albertan podcast, and for those of you that have seen some of our other episodes in the past, those are up on YouTube. If you're new to the stream, new to the channel, go check that out. Some really good commentary by our panelists here. We've done some redrafts of 2003. We've looked at round 1. We've looked at building a fantasy team in your hockey league, all those kind of things over the past few months. So welcome in to our playoff round number 3, and let's meet our panelists, starting with you. Eric, how are you doing?
I'm all right. Well, I'm ready for baseball season. Because I don't golf, but the team that I cheer for is very good at golf, and they were a little bit delayed, 2 weeks, I guess, more than normal. But it's once again 30 years. It'll be past that before another Canadian team wins, so it gets harder to watch, and as was mentioned, and I'm sure we will, the Sun Belt teams that are, I don't think a team should win that has a better winter than we do in Edmonton. So I guess that just leaves Winnipeg. So it's just Edmonton and Winnipeg, maybe Calgary. Vancouver never wins, so who cares? Montreal has some nasty weather, but yeah. So how am I? That was my long answer to, ready to talk shit. Yeah, whatever. I don't care. So
for those 60 that are tuning in already, yeah, Eric has a lot to say, and he's been biting his tongue for the last couple of days. So we'll get to some Leaf and Oiler talk, more specific from the fans on the panel in just a little bit. Frank, how about you? How you doing? I know the Canadians have been out of the playoffs and look forward to the draft lottery. You got the number 5 pick, but are you at least enjoying watching the hockey? Or Frank?
Talking to me.
Yeah. Frank, yeah. Oh, there's a little bit of an Eastern lag, I guess. There's a little bit of a time zone difference.
I don't know what's up, man. I use my I plugged in and I went to look at my router and the freaking thing is lighting up like Christmas trees. So I switched to wireless. So while I was doing that, I lost you guys. So what was your question?
Okay,
How am I doing?
how you doing? How are you enjoying the hockey without the Canadians part of the playoffs?
It's okay. We got Habs got screwed by jokers galore, which is the Leafs. So rejoice, Leaf fans. You cost Montreal at least 12 ranks in the draft with the first overall pick. So that is the only thing you can rejoice about, because the rest is all a big old shit show.
Oh, Frank is in a great mood tonight, as you can tell. And Ryan.
Second big piece of news. Bonus, still an a-hole after round 2.
Frank just won't let it go. He just won't let it go. Ryan, bring some civility to the conversation. Bring some maturity to the conversation. How are you doing? I know it's fresh. I know it's been only a couple of days, but put a smile on your face and give us some good news.
I might try golfing. Might pick up golfing this summer. Get my mind off of some things. No, I mean, big time Warner fan. Obviously, there's some disappointment, but like the last few years, I very quickly felt relieved that I didn't have to panic about whether or not they were going to win. So I don't know, a little bit bittersweet always for me whenever they get kicked out. Obviously, I want to see them win, but there's this. I feel a certain pressure that gets lifted off of you once there's just no hope anymore.
And as those of you that have been watching our past episodes, kind of a very similar thumbnail for today's show, except Eric is not watching the Leafs hoist the cup, because that is no longer a possibility this year. He's watching them hold up the rat. And if you know anything about Florida Panthers playoff history,
Mel&B.
So enjoy the big rat, Toronto. All right. Well, we got the Final Four in the playoffs, and we will make our predictions a little bit later. We've got Vegas, Dallas, Florida, and the Carolina Hurricanes. We're going to see a matchup in the final that we've never seen before. None of these 4 teams have met up in the Stanley Cup final before, so that's a little bit, I guess, refreshing. Dallas has won a cup. Vegas has not. Carolina won in 2006 over Edmonton. And Florida looking. So we got a 50% chance of a new team hoisting the cup in about a month's time. But we can't delay any longer. We've got to get on to the Canadian perspective in round 2. Sorry, Jets fans, but we talked about you at the end of round 1. We're going to focus on the Oilers and Leafs. They are the talking point over the last week. Which playoff exit was more disappointing, Leafs or Oilers? Well, we're going to hear from the 2 fans, Eric and Ryan, and then Frank's going to tell us the real story from an Eastern perspective about the exit of the Oilers and Leafs. So, Ryan, you are on the dock here. Edmonton bowing out in Game 6 at home. Go ahead. You've got the floor, young man.
I'm disappointed to say that part of the way through Game 5, maybe after the first period, I just had this feeling that it wasn't going to be this year. I was almost certain they were losing out. They fell off a cliff. I don't know if it was the Draisaitl and Pietrangelo thing between Game 4 and 5. I don't know what it was, but there was just a shift that seemed like in the attitude of that team between those 2 games, and it just, I don't know. They just didn't seem like they cared enough to take it from Vegas.
Is there anyone, Ryan, that really picked their game up, that impressed you, even though they lost out, that maybe took a step forward, as this article says, for Oilers who raised their stock in the playoffs?
I really like the third line of McLeod, Fogle, and Ryan. They never really maybe chipped in enough to make it worth it, but they're oftentimes they're the best line on the ice, holding a lot of zone time. You'd like to see him maybe get the puck behind the net a little bit or behind the goalie a little bit more, but thanks. There he is right there. But they showed a lot of like Fogle, other than, like I said, putting the puck in the net. Really, I think he played his best hockey in an Oilers uniform these last couple of weeks. And I have to say a lot for McLeod as well. And Ryan was just that stabilizing force on that line there. I say that whole line deserves a pat on the back. And then Bouchard, as you see there, really took a huge leap forward these playoffs.
Yeah. Well, what went wrong, Ryan? Why couldn't they? I know Vegas was ahead of them in the standings. They had the first seed in the division. What went wrong for Edmonton? In your opinion, you've watched this team all year long, the ups, the downs. What went wrong?
I think it's Skinner getting a taste of big boy hockey for the first time in his career. I think maybe Woodcroft to an extent being too stubborn to throw Campbell in there for a start. I really think he should have started Game 5. Nurse trying to do too much. If he just would sit and play defense and worry about defending the front of the net, he'd be a fantastic defenseman. But he tries to do too much all the time, and it's frustrating. He just needs to learn to sit at home, clear the front of the net, and then make his move. He's too often wandering out into the middle of nowhere. Game 6, I think 2 goals. Right after the 2 goals were up, camera went right to Nurse, and he's just shaking his head. I mean, I don't know what's with that guy. I don't know if it's the contract weighing over him, but he needs to just take a breath this offseason and come back a little more relaxed and a little more focused on what got him the big payday.
All right. Pretty calm.
Sorry?
You're pretty calm for a team that just, lost Game 6 a couple nights ago.
To the top 6, I mean, Draisaitl was on pace to have an unbelievable playoffs. Connor McDavid was doing Connor McDavid stuff, but then you have yourself Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Vander Kane, and Hyman that you would think that they would step up at some point, but really just never showed up. I know maybe Nugent-Hopkins, the playoff hockey really isn't his style, more or less, but he still has to show up. I mean, he's a small guy, I get it, not overly fast, but smart, and he really just kind of shied away from everything. The last couple games at home kind of seemed off as well. I don't know, like I said, from the early stages of Game 5, it just seemed like the Oilers just didn't have it anymore. They lost it somewhere.
And other than the goaltending, if you had to, single out one player as a huge disappointment in round 2, who would that be? Who disappointed you the most in that round against Vegas?
Hyman. I think it would be Hyman. I mean, of course, you don't know what these guys are doing on the injury front, and they keep it very hush-hush, but at the end of the day, you still have to put in the effort, and I think Hyman should have shown more than what he did.
Okay. Well, let's go to the other side of the country and let's talk about the talking points for the Toronto Maple Leafs. 56 years now and counting since the Stanley Cup was paraded around downtown Toronto, and they do have their round 1 playoff rings on order, but that's it, nothing else. So let's go to our Leaf resident fan and hear a little bit about what went wrong in Toronto this year, Eric.
Heart, none of it. Bottom line, it's funny because yes, it was frustrating that they lost. What's more frustrating is reading stuff online which says, let's keep everybody exactly the way they are. What the hell are you talking about? Keep everybody exactly the way you are. Why? So we can be crap forever? Like, it's ridiculous. And I just think, give your head a shake. You don't go to war with these guys because, and Frank said this months ago, These aren't the guys you go to war with. They're not the guys that do playoff stuff. John Tavares needs to take a stick to the head. Somebody should take a stick and just start smashing him. It's, because he's not. I saw him turn away from hits so many times where he should have hit somebody. He's not doing it, and he's the captain. I've heard recently he's like, well, I'm the captain. I like being the captain, and I'm here for 2 years. You like $11 million. That's what you like. Good old Marner, he has a golden stick up his ass. He couldn't do a damn thing. And it was hugely frustrating. And again, what do you read? Oh, he's Mr. Selke or whatever. Yeah, Selke, Mr. Selk, whatever. He's not there. He's not good enough. And that's the bottom line. He's a pretty boy. That's lovely. He's a Toronto kid. That's lovely too. He doesn't have it. You need some ugly. And they don't have a lot of ugly on that team because they all make a lot of money. And they're in Toronto and they think that, I don't know, that's the center of the universe. It was really frustrating to see a team that works hard, absolutely deserve to win. I'm not going to, don't give me this BS about that stupid goal. Suck it up, Buttercup. That's the way it is. Score more goals, and guess what? You don't give a shit about that one that went over the line, didn't go over the line. Nobody could really tell except for, guys in their basement who are highlighting it and putting it on social media. It was, when we look and your headline was, what's more disappointing, the Oilers or the Leafs? It's 100%. It's the Leafs. Why? Because they lost to a team who was considerably less than in points for the regular season. They didn't build on the fact that they actually got past round one and beat, 2-year Stanley Cup champion and, finalist from last year. They didn't build on that at all. It was like that was enough. And yeah, Florida's kind of a Cinderella team. I don't have any anger towards them. I'm not like, oh, I hope they, get destroyed. They worked. They taught you a lesson. And the lesson is you got to work, and you got to work every shift. And it just wasn't happening. Matthews, he was okay. He wasn't because, he gets paid a lot of money for doing something, and he didn't do a lot. Nylander was better, probably of the top four or the core four. He was the one that probably had the most, and Riley, who I guess isn't part of that core four, probably had the best playoffs, and he had a terrible regular season. So how do I feel? I'm angry. I think there's some changes that need to be made, but all I'm hearing about is keep them together. They're, Don Cherry just recently came out and said, they're 100 and whatever, 10-point team, keep them together. No, don't do that. Bring in some uglies. I don't care. Finish in the third, finish in fourth, as Florida did, but then learn something, get tougher. Goaltending, whatever. Goaltending is an issue. It was an issue when they made their decisions last year. And so that's my rant of what went wrong. Easily, the biggest disappointment was the Leafs. They got to own it. They got to change it, or else we'll be just doing this again every year. And I'm getting tired of the memes. I'm getting tired of everything sent to me. I'm freaking tired. And why aren't they tired? Right? Learn something, do something. There's my thoughts.
And for those of you that have been watching other episodes, Eric is easy going and very, very low key. So for him to, rant about his Leafs like this, and the fact that, the media and fans are saying, keep them together, you really feel where he's coming from. So before we get to Frank and his take on the two Canadian teams, a couple quick questions, Eric. One, of the free agents that the Leafs have, O'Reilly, Schenn, Bunting, which of the three do you think is a priority for them to keep in Toronto, or are any of them priority?
Well, certainly I like O'Reilly. I think he was screwed from the start. He broke his finger pretty early on and really never gelled. I like him. I think he's got potential, although I'm not paying him. He wants to be paid Toronto dollars, I'm sure, and that's no good. Schenn was probably in the playoffs was the best. Just a solid guy who did what he was supposed to do. And as for Bunting, Bunting was good when he came back. He made a stupid mistake. Looked like Kadri for a while, and Kadri was interesting because he was sending texts saying, leave me out of this, because everybody was comparing the two. Bunting to me is a poor man's Hyman. Hyman's better, and yeah, if you can get him for a cheap price, he's okay. He's a good third line kind of guy. And I also think he's a Toronto kid, which is neither here nor there, but there you go. So Schenn would be number one, Bunting number two, and I think O'Reilly's going to want too much money for an old guy, and I just don't think it worked. So, and
very quick answer: Dubas remain, or do they need to bring in some fresh blood as GM?
Nah, keep him, but I don't know. It's a tough call. So, because if you keep him and he does the same things, then you're going to just lose again. And if he's going to give all that money to four main players, so I don't have an answer for that. Like, depends who the alternative is, things along those lines. I mean, it's been 56 years. Nobody's made it work yet. So there you go.
All right. Well, we've heard from the Leafs fan, obviously disappointing. The Leafs exit out, projected to go, really far with the talent that they have in the regular season, got by the first round. Edmonton, again, projected to go far. And I guess for me with Edmonton, before we move to Frank, is this was one of their best opportunities. Dallas, beatable, I think. Boston was out. The Rangers were out. The Devils were out. The Leafs were out. We had all these great teams that have been eliminated, and Edmonton could have snuck in there and won a cup if they had even average goaltending. And I really like what McDavid had to say in his presser today or yesterday, where he said, believe it or not, we've made steps forward. We may not look like it, but he said the Oilers have made progress this year.
That's what I wanted to bring up, is that between the two teams, I think the Leafs need a bit of an overhaul, but Edmonton needs to kind of stay the course with some fine adjustments, maybe upgrading CC's position, maybe ditching Yamamoto on whoever will take him, maybe a little bit more in the bottom six. I think just need some tweaking. Whereas the Leafs, I think they need to get cracking here.
All right. Well, let's hear from Frank here. Frank, from the Eastern perspective, not really, tied to the Leafs or to the Oilers. You're, of course, a hockey fan, a Canadian hockey fan, and a Canadian hockey fan. Give us your take about what went right or what went wrong for the Oilers and Leafs this season.
Yeah. So last podcast, I said the key for Edmonton, I'm going to go back to Edmonton, where we just did the Leafs, was to go away from the three-headed monster, which was McDavid, Draisaitl, and Bouchard, because everybody else did basically nothing in the first round. So Nugent Hopkins had to step up. He did. He got 8 points. Hyman had to step up. He did. He got 7, I think. He had 4. So Ryan, I don't know. You're saying they didn't produce. They did produce in the second.
Well, they weren't difference makers. They didn't come in when it counted.
I don't know. They had 3. Nugent Hopkins had 3 points, 2 points, 2 points. I don't know if they won that game or whatever, but at least they showed up. The problem was only 2 of them showed up. Evander Kane was still MIA. And I went back and I looked pre-injury. He had 13 points in 14 games. Came back in January. Didn't do much. And then after the All-Star break, it was worse and worse. So I don't think his injury was very severe. You know, he cut his wrist. So I don't think he was 100%. So that really, it's like you said, the stars were aligned, Glenn. Maybe not, because that injury probably cost the Oilers, because in the second round, if Evander Kane would have been 100%, and I'm telling you, I don't think he was, it could have made a difference. Now I'll go a comment that will apply to both the Leafs and the Oilers. When your goalie strategy is a hope and prayer, you're not going to win. Okay? Leafs went for Murray with hopes and prayers that he would get his mojo back. Oilers went signed Campbell with the hope and prayer he would get his mojo back. You don't win the goddamn fucking cup with hope and prayers. That's it. That's all. Can you blame Skinner? No. He's a freaking rookie. 24 years old. He didn't deliver. He got outplayed by Aiden Hill, who played excellent. And on the other side, Bobrovsky outplayed Samsonov and Joseph Wall. So what can you do? It's like Matt Murray was healthy at the end and they didn't even play him. So you cannot win in the playoffs without having solid goaltending. Florida, Lion started out the 3 games, and then Bobrovsky came in the Boston series, got blown out for one. His stats looks awful for overall, but his GAA is 286 because since that blowout, he's been lights out. He beat the Leafs. You know, Anderson was injured. Ranta went in. He came back from injury. His goals against average is below 2. Outplayed New Jersey goalie. Vanacek, he folded like a house of cards. And then they had the rookie. You know, you look everywhere. What happened is goaltending. You know, Ottinger in Seattle, oddly enough, in the other series, both goalies suck. But at the end of the day, Ottinger had no goals until 17 seconds to the end. So the Oilers, you can see whose fault is it? And Ryan touched on it. Is it Holland, who went in with the strategy of hope and prayer with the duo of Campbell-Skinner? So what percentage does he have to own? Then the coach? And like Ryan said, Jack Campbell has a goals against average of 1 in the playoffs. You know, okay, he came in, whatever, but what do you have to lose at some point in putting in the guy you're paying $5 million a year? So what percentage lies at the feet of the coach? But you can't blame Skinner. That's for sure. And you have the other players, and I agree with Ryan's take about the third line, about Nurse. They didn't deliver. They have, you know, Nurse, if he doesn't get into that fight, you know, and everybody says, oh, he challenged him on the face-off. Yeah, and he turned it down, and then 20 seconds later, he goes and pummels him. Last 5 minutes, he gets suspended. It's like, use your brain. Pietrangelo was suspended, and at least they could have had a full team for the next game. So, brain cramp over there. So, anyways. So, that's Edmonton. So, and the two situations are at the opposite. And you saw it from Ryan's comments, and even Gled said, how come you're not more depressed? And we flipped over to Eric, who's pissed off. Why? Because the Oilers have hope in the way they lost, because you have Connor McDavid 20 points, Draisaitl 18 points, Bouchard 17 points, Nugent Hopkins, 11 points after having 3 in the first round. Hyman, 11 points after having 4 or 3 in the first round. Ekholm, 7 points. You know, there's hope. They solved their goalie, and it's probably already solved. Skinner's going to be a year older, more experienced. So get rid of Campbell, get rid of his salary, and then get a 1B veteran backup. Toronto. So I'm super happy they lost, except for the draft pick. That's why I picked them to win, because I couldn't jinx the Habs pick, but I didn't want Toronto to win. Freaking losers. It's so bad how much of a bunch of losers these guys are. It's not even funny, man. They find new ways to lose.
Look, Frank. Look at Tavares here. Look how determined he is in this game against Florida.
Yeah,
he's just like,
that's because he's hugging instead of hitting, and that's Bennett, by the way, who's a little son of a bitch that hits him. Is a mean motherfucker, and he's hugging him. Hey, let's do a selfie. You know. So Joseph Wall did his best. Samsonov did not deliver. Folded like a house of cards. Eric said he wasn't disappointed in Matthews. 2 points, 0 goals in the second round. 0. That's the same amount of games played in the 2008 draft from Montreal picks, you know? 0 goals in a whole series. Go look at Tavares. Go look at Marner. The only guy that produced was Nylander in the second round. That's it. The rest were Caspers. They got goalie outplayed. Bobrovsky outplayed Toronto goalies. Defense. The Florida 6 outplayed the Toronto 6. First line got outplayed. Second line got outplayed. Third line got outplayed. Fourth line got outplayed. And Florida, stop saying they were way behind in points. They are last season's President Cup winners. So they were not that bad. It's just that Bobrovsky was lost in space. My God, he sucked, you know? And then Spencer went on his hiatus. We don't know what it was. So they went to turn to a 31-year-old rookie. And that got them into the playoffs. But, like, besides that, they're a damn good team. So what needs to happen in Toronto? I agree with Eric. I want to be politically correct. I don't want to turn off the women in the audience, but and I'm not.
Yes, women, please stay. Please comment below. Tell Frank to button up his shirt. Oh, it's buttoned up. He's got a big shirt buttoned up.
Yeah, no way. So I don't know. I'll just use Burke's truculence. They need truculence and less flowered pickers. Let's call it that instead of the real word I wanted to use. So I don't know. It's baffling. It's baffling, and it's great for me because they suck so bad. And they really won their Stanley Cup in the first round. They celebrated. I said it in the last podcast. The way they celebrated, kept bringing cases and cases of Bud Light to the locker room. They celebrated that like that was their Stanley Cup. And you can't win when that's your criteria for success. You cannot. Draisaitl might be an asshole. Didn't shake Pietrangelo's hand, and he said it after. He's pissed off. He said, I did not deliver. I did not play well. That's what you want as an attitude.
Mm-hmm.
You know? That's how you win. And I always said, and Eric mentioned it, you got players that bring you to the playoffs and players that bring you through the playoffs.
Yeah.
There is nobody on the roster except Ryan O'Reilly, but he was diminished and he was on the third line on the Leafs lineup to bring them through the playoffs. So they're going to have to figure it out and fast because the people are saying to keep it intact. They're using Ovechkin as a blueprint. Okay? He was 32 before he won his first cup. They kept Backstrom, Ovechkin together, Carlson together. They kept that core group together, and they eventually won him when he was 32. But newsflash, Matthews can't carry Ovechkin's jockstrap. All right? And he couldn't even party like Ovechkin partied. He's legendary. Captain Underpants parties in his underpants outside. That's why he got the nickname. At least Ovechkin, he's legendary for those who watch How I Met Your Mother. Legendary. So Matthews is no Ovechkin, never will be. And we criticize Russians with their will to win, but Ovechkin wanted to win. He got pissed off for the 14 years he had to wait. And when it finally happened, that's why he went on the summer of drunkenness. We saw him drunk in a fountain. Everywhere around the world, he was drunk celebrating. That's how much it meant to him, you know? But that's not going to be a good blueprint for Toronto because there's no character. So I'll finish my rant there, and I hope they keep it together. I hope they do, man. I hope they do. Sorry, Eric, but I really hope they do.
All right. Well, one thing about Florida, back when we were analyzing the retro jerseys, that jersey sure grows on you.
Still awesome. I
love an awesome jersey.
I
like it very much.
And I love it now.
Yeah, really nice jersey, and they're quick on the swag in terms of rubbing it into the Leafs fan there. You can buy your We Want Florida t-shirt right now on the Florida Panther website. So, yeah, kind of backfired on the Leafs fans there. You gotta watch what you chant. All right, let's move ahead now. We've got lots to cover. Let's kind of quickly go through the draft lottery. Frank and I talked about this on our live episode last week. Ryan and Eric were not available. So quick thoughts, Ryan, on the draft lottery and the Blackhawks winning the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. I think you're muted.
No, I don't know what to say. It's probably the team that shouldn't even have a friggin' draft pick right now, but here they are with the next generational talent.
That's what I said.
I mean, I was really hoping for Anaheim. I think Anaheim has a good young core, and he would have just put him over the top. But in Colorado or Chicago, it's going to be years. He's going to be feeling the pain like McDavid did in Edmonton.
All right, Eric.
Yeah, I concur. I think, and also with the shadow of what went on in Chicago, you know what? Chicago really got rid of everybody. I feel sorry for the kid because there's really no veteran presence there that's going to do anything. And it's, you know,
they'll sign Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah, man, maybe they will, and that'll be okay. I mean, my number one, I'll be brutally honest, I wanted Montreal to somehow come through. I thought that would have been great. And when that didn't happen, Chicago wouldn't have been high. Anaheim, I agree, would have been great because of the fact that they really could build, and the kid, it would have been exciting. It's going to be a while for this poor kid. You know, like Connor McDavid when he came to the Oilers, I think this is worse. I think he's in a worse situation, and I don't think he's as talented or as generational, if you will, as Connor McDavid. So we'll see what happens. You know, it's always nice original six team, but they've got such a shadow on them, and it's too bad. I feel sorry for the kid, but we'll see what happens. So.
All right. Yeah, I think Chicago was, of course, the big market. So I'm sure the NHL likes that in terms of the big market that he's going to. But yeah, they have been decimated from trades and scandal and things like that. And those of you that are watching, over 400 of you currently watching the stream, thank you again for tuning into the show. Frank, Ryan, and I, and Eric appreciate you guys tuning in. Feel free to ask a question, to leave a comment there. Who do you follow? Who are you rooting for in the playoffs? What do you think about the draft lottery going to Chicago? Feel free to leave a comment. I know a bunch of you left comments in the last video. So yeah, we welcome some engagement in the chat. All right, let's quickly go through the awards. Now that we know the 3 finalists for all the different awards, let's give our take on who are going to take these 4 or 5 awards, starting with the coach of the year, the coach that made the biggest difference. I'm going to go with Lindy Ruff. Eric, how about you?
I would probably go with Jim Montgomery. I thought he had a terrible playoff, but at the same time, come on, it was season. Holy cow, he turned it around. So yeah, that's where I'd go.
And Ryan?
I'm going to go with a Ruff. Went from being booed out of his arena to fans chanting for him. So he turned that team around, went on a hell of a run in the regular season, and went to the second round of the playoffs.
And Frank, who really will win here?
Yeah, playoffs don't count, by the way, guys. That's tough, man. That's 3 quality coaches. Like, nobody has Seattle in the playoffs. And they didn't sneak in, man. They were in the whole year. Montgomery, you're watching. I saw you laugh, Glenn, but you're watching it from after the fact. With a 37-year-old Bergeron and a 38-year-old Krejci who didn't even play in the NHL. Boston was supposed to squeak in maybe in the playoffs, not do records. And Lindy Ruff, like Ryan said, he there was fire rough chance in the stands and all. So, but I think historical season's gonna win it for Montgomery. They went at least 40 points above expectations. So,
and for those of you watching not familiar with the award process in the NHL, these are voted on at the end of the regular season. The playoffs have no impact on these awards right here. Only the Conn Smythe, which is awarded at the end of the playoffs. And the 3
I'll go one more prediction. I'll give you the order. I think it's going to be Montgomery first, Haskell second, and Ruff third.
Okay. So and yes, the three names that you will see on these award sheets are the top 3. So these are the 3 biggest vote getters. And I'm going to go with Lindy Ruff, bringing the young crew together, dealing with the trades that came in. But all 3 are deserving, definitely. Yep. All right. Let's go on to the Calder. This is for the Rookie of the Year. We've got a forward, a defenseman, and a goaltender. And goaltenders often don't win this award when they're nominated. This one's tough because it's oranges and apples for me. They all contribute different things to the team. A defenseman contributes one thing, a forward contributes another. But the way that Seattle performed, Beniers, I believe, is going to win this, the biggest point total, even though maybe he's not the most deserving. I think maybe Owen Power for his contribution to Buffalo, but Buffalo didn't make the playoffs. And unfortunately, sometimes that goes through the mind of the voter. And I think it's going to be the Seattle forward. Frank, we'll start with you on this one.
And not enough points for Powers he's going to be third. Skinner should win. The voters probably gave it to Beniers, but my pick is Skinner. So I'll go off the deep end and say Skinner 1, Beniers 2, and Powers a distant third.
All right.
Yeah.
Eric.
I agree exactly with what Frank said. I think Skinner, without him playing the way he did, I don't even know if the Oilers make the playoffs. So, which is mind-boggling. But thank God for him. So he, he was amazing. He was really good. So, and then Power would be my third, and Beniers for Seattle. I'm not saying it right. Frank says it right. I don't.
Beniers.
Beniers. Yeah, he'd be second.
Okay, so you're saying Skinner will win or should win or both?
Well, I will win.
Will win. Okay. And Ryan, the Oiler fan.
Well, I think Skinner should win, but I think it's going to be Beniers that takes it.
No cojones, come on.
Well, I don't know. The goaltenders aren't as flashy and dashy as the forwards, and the forwards get all the attention when it comes to the Rookie of the Year most of the time.
29 wins, I think, makes a difference.
I hope. Believe me, I hope, Frank. I hope, but I think it's going to be Beniers.
Me too. I hope.
The Oilers have never had a Calder winner ever.
But
So-
I saw a stat about a Calder winner of a goalie, I think in the 80s or 90s, and his stats were lesser than Skinner. And they had the runner-up as a forward had more points than Beniers.
Oh.
Take that year, the goalie who won had lesser stats than Skinner. The forward who didn't win had better stats than Beniers. So let's move on to the next one. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't win. He should win, and I'm gonna put my hand in the fire and said that he will win.
All right. Hopefully the first Edmonton Oiler to win the Calder Trophy. All right. Speaking of goaltenders, let's go to the Vezina. We've got Hellebuck from Winnipeg, Sorokin from the Islanders, and Olmark from the Bruins.
It's funny, all four of us, that's the three names we came up with without knowing the finalists when we did our podcast.
Yep. I think the Rangers goalie probably would have been number 4 on this list. I'm going to go Hellebuck. I think he brought the Jets into a playoff position. The other two goalies are great, but I'm going to go, I think Connor Hellebuck is the best goalie in the league right now. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I think earlier in the season, a couple podcasts ago, I said Allmark.
Yep.
But I want to have to agree with you. I want to have to go with Hellebuck. The
Did
Jets
I
team.
convince you with my arguments back when?
Well, the Bruins.
Glenn used my words verbatim.
I memorized it, Frank. Memorized it. All right.
Allmark was on a hell of a team, but Hellebuck, there's nothing really that flashy and dashy about the Jets, and they got into the playoffs.
Eric.
I'm going to go what Glenn said via Frank. Because Frank schooled us on this Vezina.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than just looking at the numbers. So Frank schooled us, and being a good student, I like to learn.
Jennings, Vezina. Jennings, Vezina.
Exactly.
Yep.
So because of that, I agree. So yeah, you've got all three. Well, so far, two of us agreeing. Three. I
And
guess.
Frank, you must make it unanimous. Hellebuck.
Sorokin.
Oh, the bait and switch.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Sorokin won it, because the Islanders are even worse than Winnipeg. He didn't go on a 13, played the last 3, but he played a lot of games. I wouldn't be surprised if he win, but the person who deserves it is Hellebuck. My God, what a season he's had. He was Sorokin was also a difference maker. It's going to be tight between those two. Allmark was not a difference maker. You take him out, you put in Swayman. Okay, maybe they don't get 100, but you look at their winning percentage, Swayman, Allmark, very similar. So, but let's go Canada. I'm going to go all 4, unanimous choice, Hellebuck.
There you go.
All right, and that brings us to the defenseman of the year, James Norris. I think this is one of the runaway winners here with Erik Karlsson. Anyone disagree?
If he doesn't win, people are fucking blind. I don't know. There's different people who vote for different categories. Sometimes it's a GM, sometimes it's the reporters. I think it varies. But this is definitely come on. Karlsson had the season to remember, so yeah.
All right, Erik Karlsson in a landslide. And interesting comment someone's made here. Someone that follows gematria, numbers, and analysis of sports and things. And we will see if this turns out to be correct. But Dallas Stars are winning the Cup this year. Next year, the Leafs will beat the Oilers in 2024. Canada equals 24 in gematria, and the Toronto Raptors won in their 24th season. So a lot of 24s and some numbers in the words there. So I think all of us, if Toronto and Edmonton end up in the finals next year, we're going to reach out to this 517 viewer.
Yeah.
Eric?
Unfortunately, the Oilers are going to beat Ottawa.
All right. Well, we will see, because it's interesting. I've heard of that gematria, and the same person said it's exactly how he was able to pick Shane Lowry to finish in third place at last year's Masters, predicting it 3 days before the Masters. Fourth correct pick. So maybe there is something to this world and how things work. But Edmonton, Toronto in the finals next year, according to this viewer here. All right. Another runaway. Something is not like the others. Reminds me of that Sesame Street song. One of these things is not like the others. McDavid, Pasternak, Tkachuk. Great year by Tkachuk. I was actually kind of shocked he was in the top three. Pasternak, absolutely fantastic, but there's no way. There's absolutely no way. Even our gematria viewer would say that Connor McDavid is destined to win this.
Connor is in the Wayne Gretzky beast mode of his career, a little bit later than Gretzky, because Gretzky was, 20, 21 when he reached his 200 points. But that's modern NHL. Connor's in a class of his own right now. There's Connor and then the rest. So This is his award until he gets bored and doesn't want to win it anymore. Because Gretzky was scoring 92 goals, 70 goals. Then he got bored. He said, okay, I'll make my teammates score. And he started passing because he was bored with scoring. That's how good he was. So Connor at one point might get bored, but this is his award to lose for the next few years. He's in the prime of his career right now.
I heard a great quote the other day. It was, you could have anything you want if you try, unless Connor McDavid also wants that thing.
Yeah. And Eric, anything to add to that?
No, he's easily the best in the NHL. There's just no, I think he's head and shoulders above others. So Edmonton got lucky in selecting him. Thank God. He's the best for sure.
Has there ever been a situation where two of the three finalists have been from the same team? Because Leon and Connor, have they ever been nominated together for the Hart?
No,
or has it always been one or the other?
They keep on taking votes away from each other.
Okay. Because Leon, I think I would put Leon ahead of Tkachuk in terms of value to the team, because Leon was just as valuable as Connor was. So interesting.
Tkachuk, it's because he had even a better season than last year.
Yeah.
He was destined for 80 points, 75, 80 points. That was the consensus. And he went over last year. Oh, and, we're talking about Lyon that brought them to the playoffs because he went on a 31-year-old rookie hot run. But Tkachuk willed them to the playoffs. Tkachuk willed them to beat Boston. Tkachuk, willed them to beat Toronto. He's dominant on the ice right now, and he's a different type of dominant than McDavid is. His will to win is second to none, and the rest of his teammates just woke up when Keith Tkachuk said that they were all, what were they? Ballet dancer. He insulted the whole team.
Yeah, he did insult him. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that woke up the rest of his teammates. And then from that point on, Florida, I think, lost 4 or 5 games the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody says the MVP of Florida is Keith Tkachuk.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a bloodline of hockey that just amazing talent with the Tkachuk family. All right, let's talk about predictions. Ryan, your predictions, 1 out of 4. You got the Florida. You were the only one brave enough to take Florida over Toronto.
I wouldn't call that brave enough. No, at least we're not getting the second. No, it was not a brave pick. It was a decent pick.
And Seattle, you came close, 1 game away. New Jersey lost out.
That one you all forced me into.
I got the 2 Canadian teams wrong, the 2 American teams. I did pick Carolina. I did pick Dallas to go forward. So 50% there. Eric, you picked Carolina. You picked Dallas. You had the exact same picks that I did. And Frank went 1 for 4 as well, picking Dallas as the only one to come out of his 4 picks. So Ryan and Frank 1 for 4. Eric and I were 2 for 4. Not much to brag about, only at 50%. Frank, anything about your picks looking back and want to comment on?
Well, if we didn't have a pick at stake, I would have picked Florida for sure. That's why I didn't wear my jersey when I made those 2 picks, first and second round. So technically, I would have been 2 for 4. But these playoffs, we said it after the first round, are freaking awesome so far. They keep being awesome and they're unpredictable. So that's great for the fans, So We'll see what happens, because somebody asked me today, so who are you going to pick? I have no freaking clue. I'll figure it out when Glenn asks me the question.
All right, Ryan, looking back, I guess we did kind of, bully you into the Seattle pick there, but anything else you want to comment on with your picks?
Well, we got ripped off of a Seattle-Vegas playoff series. It could happen soon. You never know. And I was kind of rooting for a Edmonton-Dallas Stars series to kind of throw back to the early 2000s when they were constantly meeting up in the playoffs. And that never happened. And then I was hoping for an Edmonton and Carolina final to throw back to 2006, and that's definitely not going to happen. So there's a whole bunch of excitement that could have happened for me in my little head that just never happened.
And Eric, how about you with your picks? 2 out of 4?
Yeah, obviously disappointing on the Canadian teams, but I thought Carolina to me looks real. And well, there's at first when there was no Canadian teams, I'm like, oh, screw this, I'm not even going to watch. You know what? It's intriguing. The Carolina versus Florida one I find very intriguing. I'm not so. You know what? I'm more excited about the East than I am the West. Mainly because I'm not a big Vegas fan. I don't like Jack Eichel. I don't think he's that great, but his numbers are great. So he must be doing something right, although somebody should punch him in the face. But generally, to be honest with you, I think I'm interested in the Carolina Florida one to be. Yeah, that'll be good. So
okay. Well, that brings us to round number 3 in the predictions. And
to answer your question, I'm up to 3 times where teammates have made the finalists for the Hart Trophy.
Oh, so I'm sure the Penguins, Malkin and Crosby must be one of them.
No, it'd be Yager and Lemieux.
Yeah, I think so.
The answer is Lemieux and Yager, and they cancel each other out because Sakic won that year. And so they were runner-up and third. Then we have. Hey, let's play a game. You're gonna have to guess. I'll give you the team. Should I give you the year?
Now give us the team.
Oilers. That was before Pittsburgh. Oilers.
Gretzky, Messier.
Gretzky and Curry.
Gretzky, Messier.
Gretzky, Curry.
Eh.
For who?
All wrong.
Messier, Curry. Fuhrer, Curry.
No, it'd be Gretzky and no.
Oh, Gretzky Coffee, maybe.
I was thinking Gretzky Anderson.
Eh. I'll give you a hint. Gretzky actually finished third.
Oh,
Oh. Who the hell?
Gretzky.
And Lemieux won the Hart that year. So find the missing piece. Lemieux number 1, Gretzky number 3. Who was runner-up? Ba-dum-bum.
Fuhrer.
Yep.
Really?
Fuhrer.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sure. It was 87-88.
wow.
Next team up, Islanders.
Bossy Trache.
Trache.
You were fast. The old guys, man, they got it right away.
You could have gave me a million years. I never would have guessed it.
Although Potvin would have been a good guess too. Potvin.
He probably got the Norris that year.
Yeah.
So
All right, let's get on to today's playoffs. We've got the third round starting on Thursday.
By the way,
In
the
the-
Bruins did it 3 out of 4 years to have 2 finalists for the Hart.
Esposito or
yeah.
Esposito Orr once, Bobby Orr, Esposito twice, Esposito, Bobby Orr 3 times. Yep, 3. All 3 times was 4 times. Holy shit! No,
and who
no.
won those, Frank?
No,
How many?
I'm sorry,
What's the
it was-
score?
It was his brother. So what? Who won?
Did Bobby win more? Or did Phil win more?
Bobby Orr won 3 years in a row, 70, 71, 72. But Phil finished third and second in 71, 72. In 70, he was alone. And in skipped a year because Bobby Clark won. Phil Esposito. Okay, so 73, Phil Esposito was second. Bobby Orr was third. And then Phil Esposito won. Bernie Perrin was running up, and Bobby Orr was third.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's pretty awesome to have 4 out of 5 years where you got two Hart Trophy finalists.
Yeah.
I
Well,
won't go
but there
back
are a
in
lot
the
less-
60s.
Lot
the
less
60s.
teams too, Frank. I mean,
I
when you
know,
had
but
6
still,
teams.
Still, 4 out of 5, man. That's freaking awesome. So I won't go
Yep.
to the 60s because there's even less team. I think there was 6. But
Yeah.
just to say, it happened 3 times after 1980. So it does happen, but you have to have, it's like Trache, Bossy were dominant, Fuhrer, I guess, had a good year. I don't know. You got to go look. Probably his career year stat-wise because his GAA was always near 4. He wasn't a statistically good goalie, but that year, I guess he was topping everything, So who knows? But and then Jagger, Lemieux, But think about it. Malkin, Crosby never did it. And that's probably why Draisaitl and Connor will never do it, because now the voters are saying you can't. It's not like the old days. So I think they're being cognizant of the fact that now they want to spread the wealth around. So anyway,
Yeah. Don't think we'll see that again. All right, round 3 of the playoffs start Thursday in Carolina. Friday it shifts over to Las Vegas, and it appears that 95% of the games will be at 8 p.m. Eastern, so we don't get a lot of those late games other than a possible Game 7 between Vegas and Dallas, but that will be at 9 p.m. Eastern, and only one afternoon game. We've got Game 2 of
Sunday?
Vegas.
has to be a Sunday.
Yeah, that'll be a Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern, so 1 o'clock Mountain Time. So those are the 4 teams that are remaining, and
I just want to say I'm happy to see that they actually had the schedule out in full before the round started.
Yeah, less teams, man. So it doesn't take a genius to schedule on alternative days, you know. So
Apparently, they had troubles with 4 teams.
well, if both series go 7 games, we go from the 18th to the 31st with a game every night. If both go 7 games, so we could have 14 straight days of hockey. But hey, let's get to our predictions. Let's go to Eric first of all on this one. Eric, Carolina, Florida. Who comes out of that one? And this time, let's pick how many games, since there's only 4 teams to talk about.
Okay, I'll go east. I'm going to go Carolina, and I'm going to say they do it in 6. And although I don't want to do this, I'm going to say Vegas, and I think they're going to do it in 6 as well.
Okay, so 2 series that go 6 games. Ryan.
I think I'm going to go with Florida in 6 games. And I'm going to go with Vegas in 5 games.
Okay. So you see a Florida Vegas, and Eric saw a Carolina Vegas. Frank, you are up. What do you see happening?
Florida. And 5 games. Dallas in 7.
Ooh. Okay.
Nice.
Just to be different, man. I gotta keep sucking, yeah. I gotta be consistent. I was under 500 in the first round. I was under 500 in the second round. I gotta be maximum 500. Come on, man. I can't disappoint the fans, man.
So Carolina Vegas. We've got Florida Vegas. We've got Florida Dallas. So I guess as the final decision here, I'm going to go Carolina, and I'll go Carolina in 7, and I'm going to go Dallas in 6.
Ooh, look at you.
So Carolina, Dallas, 2 former Cup champions are going to hold off a new Stanley Cup champion. So all 4 of us have different finalists this year. One of us has got to be right. There's no other combination.
The odds are in our favor.
Yeah. 100%. One of us will be right.
If we're not, there's something wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. There will be something wrong.
Toronto made a protest and came back in the playoffs.
The goal counts, Frank. The goal counts. And they're going to replay Game 6.
Wouldn't matter.
Yes. Yes. Well, let's leave off on this because it's something we never have addressed in previous podcasts, but I know it's always an issue of controversy when you're watching the games, especially for your home team, someone you're invested in. Referees come up often. I know Eric mentioned earlier, forget about that. Forget about the goal. Get off your ass and score your own goals to overcome that. Yes or no question. You got 30 seconds each. Ryan, has refereeing been a major factor in the playoffs so far?
Yes. I have been hearing from some other analysts that they consider this playoffs some of the worst the worst reffing they've ever seen in a postseason.
Are they your age?
No, a little older.
Tim Peel. Not said.
Hey, well, Frank.
Yeah, I don't know. Terrible. They watch outright blatant calls be like fouls right in front of them, and just I don't know, dazed and confused.
Mr.
I guess.
Magoo's in the playoffs, for God's sakes. Remember Magoo?
Nick Magoo, yes.
Yeah,
All right.
Magoo.
Eric, how about you? Has refereeing been detrimental in the playoffs so far? What do you think?
I think it always is to a certain extent, but every team goes by it. I remember, Mr. Magoo. I remember Andy Van Helleman, for God's sake. People screaming at him. My dad, I remember him yelling when he played the Oilers. He hated Van Helleman.
Eric, you
It's
remember
there.
Schoenfeld?
Remember who?
Schoenfeld?
Oh, yeah.
He went down the fucking tunnel to go beat up the fucking refs.
Yeah, and have another donut, you fat pig. Yeah, I remember that. Like, oh my God, it was nasty. So it's been there forever. Deal with it. Score more goals than the other team. I'm tired of the whiny tit shit. You know what? Suck it up, shut up, and win. And that's just the bottom line. So no, I don't blame this on the referees.
I just want to make
that's the way it is. So
I just want to say I don't think it's been biased towards any teams. I just think in general across the board it's been terrible.
Ryan, before you were born, it was terrible. It's been terrible.
Well, I can't speak to how it was before I was born.
Watch the tape. Just Google Schoenfeld. Okay, that was epic. Okay?
Yeah, it was epic. Yeah.
And why don't you Google Alain Cote's goal, and if you can't find it, add Carey Fraser. Okay. And you think this goal was bitch? That goal was for a lot more marbles. So my quick answer is yes. Oh yeah, that's the goal, man. Look at this fucking thing. Oh, look at Carey waving his arms. Oh, look at Bergie. Bergie's not happy. Look at him.
Oh my God.
I miss those Nordique Canadian days, that's for sure. Those were just great series there. Who was in goal for the...
I want to piss off anybody from Quebec City. All I have to say is that goal wasn't good. So, to answer Glenn's question real easily, look at his coif. I'm not wearing helmets. I'm a superstar. I don't wear helmets. I'm a referee. Look at me. I look at my arms, man. Everybody's going to see me wave my arms, man. I'm being a butterfly. Oh, fucking Carey. Anyways, so to answer the coif again.
There you go. I think you need to take a selfie with that. What a young referee that was back in the day.
Glenn, it has had an impact, but guess what? It always has an impact.
Yeah.
And we did talk about it in the previous or the one before podcast. And I said the referees are so dumb by not calling penalties because they don't want to impact the game. And I said, like the Oilers, teams that are geared with an awesome power play, they get penalized when you don't call the penalties because it takes a weapon away from them that they've built their team around. So they are impacting the game by trying not to impact the game. So just call the freaking penalties, man, Mr. Magoo. It's like when you see a cross-check in your face and you can see the guy looking at the player, all right, the referee can get hit by flying teeth and they would say, I didn't see anything.
Well, I think that's part of the problem is the fact that what's a penalty in November isn't a penalty in May.
It's ridiculous.
And it pisses me off as well. So I think it should be consistent, but as Frank said, yeah, it seems to change. The standard is different. They don't want to interrupt the game, blah, blah, blah. And nobody knows kind of where it is then, and it's
And
frustrating.
Ryan,
It's been like that forever, though.
the little love tap Pietrangelo gave Draisaitl, okay, because it is a love tap, right? With these little rinky-dink little sticks that weigh 1.2 ounces, okay? Back in the 80s and the 70s, they were wood, okay? It's like hitting people with a 2x4, all right? Bones would break, man, all right? That was...
I wasn't thinking about that situation in particular. I was thinking about the last couple minutes of Game 6 for the Oilers and Kings.
McSorley and Brashear. Go look at that, you know? It's like, that was a real hockey stick, not this little love tap. It's so bad. It's like, you didn't even miss the shift, for God's sakes. So it always been bad, you know?
Yeah.
And
Well, look at the Ryan Kessler on the Edmonton goalie a few years ago, the Brett Hall goal against Buffalo. I mean, talk about that goal there. And you never seem to complain when it goes the way of your team, do you? You never seem to complain.
You're bringing up the Calgary Flames goal against Tampa from 2004, right?
Yeah.
So that and legitimately so. I think if it had been the video review of today, I think Calgary would be Stanley Cup champions
again.
So,
After.
And God help us if that, So maybe God smiled then, but still.
But this is what happens. This is what happens in hockey. Bobby Clark broke Malahov or Karmelov's ankle. And what's an exhibition game in the 70s because he hated the Russians. And he said he did it on purpose. And he didn't do it with a new age stick, which would have broken. He broke his ankle. It's Canada versus Russia. That's
fucking playing the commies, though. So you have to be fun.
But still, man, you broke the guy's ankle just to make sure you won an exhibition. That's how hockey players are wired. So, like, come on, man. This is like, it is what it is. Playoff hockey. There's always a reason why we know Toronto's not gonna, because you said it, Eric. John Tavares shies away from even hitting. If you don't go to dirty areas, you don't win.
Don't win.
You can't win in the playoffs. And it is, we see it, ouch. And it's like, that's why you need some grit, you need some toughness, but you can't only have that now in the NHL, but you have to have a balance. And like, that's, they're pissed. They almost
they walked off the ice on this one.
They almost left and said, screw this.
Yeah.
So, suck it up, new NHL fans, the Ryans and the Youngers of the world. You don't remember these days of that was heavy duty. Go just type in Black Friday, Canadians and Nordiques. Okay? Battle Royale ended a player's career with a sucker punch, Gilles Lupien. And this is nothing compared to that. Come on, man. That's like, school being canceled because there's 2 inches of snow. It's like, come on, man. Our mothers would kick us in the ass with 2 feet of snow. Get to school, kiddo. So, and that brawl, Habs Nordique, is like, that rivalry, and Glenn, you mentioned it like a little bit. The rivalry on the ice was rivaled with the rivalry from the fans because families would get together and there would be fights, like fist fights between family members that were Habs fan and Nordique fans, like a Christmas supper. It was crazy. So now we're like, look at that crap. So now this, like the NHL today compared to that, is ballerina hockey. Stop complaining about, didn't call. It's never going to get called. It's the way the NHL. It's a macho sport. There's a reason why soccer, you blow on somebody and the guy almost dead. Whereas an NHLer, he gets 52 stitches. He comes back after 20 minutes, man, with a cage, you know? That's toughness, and that's what hockey is. Tough. You know, sometimes players should not be as tough as they are, but they are. That's what it is. That's it. That's all. You're on the right side, wrong side, score more goals, period.
That's about mine.
Yeah, well, this has been a great episode, guys. Still over 400 people enjoying the conversation here. A little bit shy on the comments, but enjoying the conversation, talking old school hockey. And let me ask all of you kind of one last question before we end off. Frank, you obviously a big-time Habs fan growing up. We're just talking about toughness in hockey. Those late 70s, early 80s, give me a name or two of Montreal Canadiens that were the tough guys, the leaders in terms of toughness on the team.
Well, in the 80s, it was Knuckles Nyland, for sure. I'm not the biggest guy, but man, he was courageous. A little bit before him was Bouchard. But an underrated one was Larry Robinson. This guy, man, he didn't fight a lot, but when he fought, he kicked ass. I think he kicked Dave Schultz's ass from Philadelphia, and I think that's what set up, because they won back-to-back Philadelphia, 74, 75. And I think when Robinson kicked his ass, they were done. It's like that showed. So Larry Robinson was tough. So those are the names I would say. Besides that, like Bouchard was key in the 70s. Underrated, but key. So.
And Eric, how about you? The growing up watching the Leafs, cheering for the Leafs. Who do you remember as the tough guys that you would want watching your back?
Well, number one, of course, is Tiger Williams, right? Love Tiger. He was an easy guy to love.
He would score,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I loved him. And of course, Rob Ramage played in Toronto for a couple of seasons as well. He was pretty tough. But I got to mention, just growing up, the guy who I really liked didn't play for the Leafs, Clark Gillies. Good Saskatchewan boy. Stopped Dave Schultz. I think he was the one who punched Schultz in the face and got rid of him at the time. So Clark Gillies gets my ultimate respect. So there you go.
Yeah, he was a tough SOB.
Yep.
And Ryan, I know you're, a lot younger than us, so we're talking more 2000s hockey, with the Edmonton Oilers. But who do you remember?
Have you heard of Dave Semenko?
I have heard of Dave Semenko, but in my era of watching hockey, there was no more feared guy on the ice than George Laraque in the early 2000s.
Yeah, he's pretty feared.
Yeah. And who was that other Edmonton Oiler that played for a couple years that was even tougher than Laraque? That
was
Sortini? Was that his name?
No,
McIntyre.
Yeah. Steve McIntyre.
That guy was a menace.
Yeah, but no, in recent hockey, nobody touches the skates of Bob Probert. My God, that guy was mean, and he could score, and he could skate. He was a nut job. It's like, I think Yzerman kept him in check most of the time, but if he would have played on any other team without Yzerman, he probably would have played 52 games and got suspended for life. He was crazy, and nobody would beat him in fights. Tony Twist tried, like everybody tried.
Yeah,
this guy was big, strong, and when he hit you like a hammer fist,
I remember, this is off the top, but Steve McIntyre's first game for the Oilers, everybody was excited for this big Goliath to come into the lineup. In his first shift, he ran a guy through the freaking boards, turned around and fought the first guy he saw, and the building just went insane. It was amazing. And then he never really lasted too much longer after that, but that guy came in with a bang. I remember that very clearly.
Yeah. No, he was tough. That was the guy that I was remembering. And for those that forget what Steve McIntyre looked like, or
He left because he broke his orbital bone, I think, and it never ever really healed properly again.
Anyways, I'm glad those days are over to have that designated fighter that did nothing on the ice. That's why I like Probert. That's why I like Tiger Williams. They had other roles on the ice. Clark Gillies was a hockey player first, could kick ass second. Larry Robinson, Hall of Famer defenseman who could fight. These unidimensional, we went through this period where it's ECHL entertainment. That's cheap entertainment. Hockey is beautiful when it's played right. Talent always wins. Old school hockey fans, they like fighting. I would ban like the junior league in Quebec is banning fighting. The rest of the junior leagues should do the same, and eventually the NHL. Fighting does not belong in hockey. It doesn't make any sense. There's no fighting in football, and that's what they do all day is hit each other. You punch a guy in football, you're suspended. You're done. You're out of the game. Plus, you're suspended. Basketball, same thing. It's like it's the only sport where you can fight and stay in the game. You can't stop fighting, but you fight, you're gone. Baseball, if you charge the mound, you stay in the game? No. So.
All right. Well, any closing comments here? We'll go once around the table. Anything that you want to kind of end off on here? We've been on for over an hour. And again, thanks for everyone for tuning in. If you are a Winnipeg Jets, if you're a Calgary Flame fan, if you're a Vancouver Canuck fan, Ottawa Senators, or even a Leaf, Oiler, or Hab fan, and you want to join in on the conversation, shoot me an email in the about section of the YouTube channel. And we'd love to have you. Always love to have good-hearted hockey fans on to talk about the sport we love. So please do that if you're interested. And again, thanks for everyone for tuning in. Ryan, last comments before we leave today?
The Oilers have been there's been talk around the Oilers about them getting Holland out of the general manager spot and bringing in Steve Stais, who I guess is a hot commodity around the NHL. I'm just wondering why the Oilers are willing to change their GM, but Toronto seems reluctant to. I think it's time for Toronto to move on from the GM, maybe their coach, one or the other, and move on. Oiler fans, don't worry. We got this. Next year's going to be better. Cap situation's better. Hopefully make some key moves. Off we go.
All right. Eric, last comments.
Disappointing once again. Like I said, we do need a shakeup. I agree with Ryan in the sense that the Oilers are ahead of the game. And I don't know. If this was the window was damn closed, man. They locked that damn window. So maybe it'll be another 50 years or whatever. But there's lots of decisions in Leafland, and they're not easy. But don't pay Matthews $14 million if, as Frank said, he doesn't show up, for Christ's sake. So there you go.
You know what's going to happen. They're going
to give it to him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He said he wants to stay.
Yeah. Because he wants to make $14 million, Frank. That's why.
Yeah.
All right, Frank, end us off here.
Yeah.
Some inspiring thoughts.
Before I make my comment, we missed something. I want from every one of you, who do you think is going to win the playoff scoring race? Because now we have number 1, number 3, number 4 all gone from the playoffs. Even number 5 is gone, which is Marner. So who's going to win the playoff scoring race?
Who's number 2 right now?
Rupi Hines is number 2 from Dallas at 19 points, 1 point behind Connor. But they have to probably win against Vegas. Then you got Kachuk with 16 points. But they have to get through Carolina. And then you have Eichel with 14 points. Then you go down to Mark Stone, who only played the second round. Remember, he has 12. Oh no, he came in the middle of the first round, right?
Yeah,
12 points in 11 games. Then Verhaeghe And J.R. Robertson, who was hot the first round, did nothing in the second round with 12 points. So basically, that's the top in the top 12. So let's go.
Well,
who wins? Who wins the scoring?
I have Eichel and Kachuk getting to the final.
All right.
And it's a sad day that two Americans are fighting over for top spot in points.
All right, pick one.
But I'm going to have to go with Kachuk.
Kachuk? All right. Eric, next.
I think Eichel. Like I said, I want to punch him in the face, but that's the guy right there, Eichel.
All right, Glenn.
Well, I have Dallas winning the Stanley Cup now of the remaining 4 teams, so it's going to be Rupee Hintz taking the scoring lead and possibly the Conn Smythe Trophy if it's not Ottinger.
Yeah, that's a good point. But Ottinger, I don't think his playoff stats are good enough. Overall, I mean. So
I want Kachuk to win the Conn Smythe just so Calgary just loses.
So I have both Dallas and Florida, I think, right? In the finals? Is that what I picked? I don't even remember. So it's going to be a hot race between Kachuk and Hines. I'm going to go with Kachuk. Why not? Just to have something different. Somebody else took Kachuk, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We got 2 Kachucks, we've got Eichel, and we've got Rupee Hintz as
got Glenn being his conservative self and taking the guy who's way ahead.
Hey, Dallas is going to win the cup. That's what the viewer in the chat said. Dallas is going to win the cup based on numerology. So how can you disagree with that? All I have to say is please, 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 no more memes for Eric. He's had enough of the Toronto Maple Leaf memes. Do not send him any more.
Library, for God's sake.
All right. Are we doing another podcast before the finals or not? Because if not, who wins the playoff Conn Smythe, playoff MVP? Or do we do another podcast?
Let's do that now because we may not do one until just before the draft and free agency. Okay. So I've got Dallas to win the cup and Hintz or Ottinger to win the Conn Smythe. Either one of those two.
Jeez.
Next.
You're catching me off guard here.
Who wins the cup and who's the Conn Smythe winner? You've got Carolina, Vegas.
We're going to hang it out there. We're going to hang it out there for everybody to either pick fun at me or whatever. But we're going to go with Vegas winning the cup. And for the first time in a long time, we're going to have Kachuk, the non-winning team, winning the Conn Smythe.
Oh, that hasn't happened in a while.
Okay.
I like the creativity.
Right. Eric?
Eichel, punch him in the face. But, going to be Eichel. Freaking Eichel. It's the year of fucking Eichel.
So you have Vegas to win, Eichel with the Conn Smythe.
I don't have them to win, but I'd like Carolina to win because I hate Eichel, but he's just pissing me off. He's going to do it. And yeah, he should be back in Buffalo or break his. Doesn't matter. Anyway, whatever.
Frank?
All right. I didn't pick my cup winner. So I have Dallas and Florida. Florida and the Dallas, eh?
Yep.
I'm going to go Florida a year late. So Florida to win the cup and Bobrovsky to win the MVP because he only missed the first 3 games. He got blown out once, but the rest of his stats will be good enough for him. So I'm going outside the box and going with Bobrovsky. Yeah, but if Carolina wins, guaranteed Anderson wins the Conn Smythe.
Not Puljujärvi?
Carolina's offense.
Winning goal.
Yeah, Carolina's offense is great by committee, but they have nobody in the top 12, so they're scoring by committee with all their 4 lines. Then you look at the defense. Brent Burns is not dominating. Slavin is doing really good, but not enough to win a Conn Smythe because defensive defensemen never do. So I think Anderson with his GAA under 2, if he finishes at 180, 170, he wins the Conn Smythe for Carolina. So that's my prediction is Bobrovsky. So we'll see how wrong I am when we reconvene before the draft.
All right.
So, and my final comments.
Part 4. This is Frank's part 4.
Yeah.
This was me taking over Glenn just in case we didn't meet. We had unfinished business. I never made my final comments. So, speaking about GM searches, Pittsburgh
Chiarelli.
going full recycling mode. Ryan burnt one of the punches with Chiarelli. Was in the first round of interviews. Bergevin, Montreal, a year removed, was also in the first wave of interviews. They want to Toronto's assistant GM, I think they want to interview him later on. But Bergevin played with Mario Lemieux at the end of his career. I think 2 or 3 years. He ended his career in Pittsburgh. That's the connection. Chiarelli, I have no fucking clue what the connection is. If Pittsburgh really wants to lose while they still have Crosby, they should hire Chiarelli because he almost ruined McDavid's chances of making the playoffs. Man, he sucks. Anyways, whatever.
Thanks. Thanks for
Chiarelli,
reminding.
when Oilers hired him, I went, oh my God. And see the great trade he made. Oh my God. You know, Islanders hated that trade so much, Barzal. Oh my God. So yeah, Chiarelli, hey boy. Anyways, so
At least he picked McDavid.
it's gonna be a very interesting offseason for GMs because Pittsburgh's at a crossroad. Same thing as Washington. Looking for a new coach also. Laviolette said, I'm tapping out. New voice needed, etc. So it's going to be awesome. Yeah, the music's coming. Like the Oscars.
And there we have it. And don't you think that Frank looks like Pete Chiarelli? Thank you guys for tuning in to the Average Albertan Podcast, playoff round number 3. We are back for the postseason, the draft, and free agency. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks to all of you who have tuned in. We will see you guys next episode. Dallas to win the cup. Blue Paint Hence to win the Conn Smythe. See you next episode.